the organization Cut for All, our Twitter handle Cut for All.
Oh, okay, good.
No worries.
Okay, we're on. Okay,
Yeah.
This is live. We're in New York City. This is the bus, Chris, that is just passing by, and we'll let it get past us so that you can hear us. But we're in New York on a beautiful day under a gorgeous sky, perfect weather. Just went for a run, then spent some time at a town hall meeting at the LGBTQ center here in Manhattan, and we're now at Stonewall, just a couple of weeks short of June 28th, which will mark the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, and really the birth of the modern LGBTQ civil rights movement in this country. And to give us a little bit more of the history and help us understand why it's so important that this was designated as a national monument, I'm joined by Jared, who is going to walk us through some of the history that we're seeing and then take us through the national monument. Jared, tell us why we should celebrate this 50th anniversary. What happened 50 years ago?
So 50 years ago, right here at the Stonewall Inn, the residents of this neighborhood and the patrons of this bar stood up to the police in a kind of a backdoor raid that happened. At the time, in the late 1960s, the Stonewall Inn was actually a mob-owned establishment by the Genovese crime family at the time. And at that point in history in New York City, being an LGBTQ person was tough. Most people couldn't congregate, and there was no dancing allowed in bars anywhere in this city except at the Stonewall Inn. So people would congregate here, and it was really the most marginalized groups of people, drag queens, people that were trans, which was absolutely a very not in vogue thing at the time.
Yeah.
And people just didn't have a place to go. So they would congregate here, and the mob would actually pay the police not to raid these facilities. But on this particular night, they did allow the police did bust in and ended up arresting several people, and several people got hurt. And during that time, the community rose up. The patrons of the bar, the police, and several people were locked inside for several hours until they were broke out. But over the next 5 days, from June the 28th, 1969, there were riots in the streets here in the Christopher Street area, and that is kind of the modern birth of the gay rights movement, as told by today. There are other factors that play into that, the hostility in the area, but that's really kind of where we are. So in 2016, President Obama designated this area as a national monument to gay rights, and it's actually called the Stonewall National Monument. And we're kind of we're literally standing where it all happened. So all of this area around us is Stonewall.
And so the importance of the National Monument is, I guess, to ensure that when we're telling the American story, this is part of the American story. This is preserved forever, so that this and future generations, as tourists from El Paso is trying to learn the history of our country, we might very well come to the Stonewall Inn and learn what happened here on June 28th, 1969, and how that connects to what we need to do going forward. And you said on June 28th you're expecting 5 million?
Yeah, June the 28th of this year will be the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, and it's actually going to be commemorated by World Pride, which is happening here in New York City on the 28th and 29th. They're anticipating 5 million people to come from around the globe to celebrate World Pride, but also the significance of the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, which set off rather worldwide. So the following year, in 1970, they actually had the first Pride Parade here in New York City, and LA and Chicago and San Francisco. So that's kind of the birth of the entire Pride movement. So in late June, and especially in the United States and other places around the world, we celebrate Pride to commemorate the liberation of gay people.
Wonderful, wonderful. And this national monument is not just this structure, it also extends to the park.
That's right, yeah.
You want to take us there, and then I'm going to ask James to tell us a little bit about the work.
Sure. So the street, the sidewalk, the park, all of this area are actually part of the national monument as designated by President Obama in 2016. So they So all of this is a historic site. There are several sculptures in the park that commemorate that. Some of these sculptures are actually modeled after real activists that participated in the Stonewall riots. And you can see that this is probably the #1 destination or stop for LGBTQ tourists that come to this city from around the world. They want to see the Stonewall Monument.
Really cool, and we're very grateful to President Obama and his administration for making the designation, but really grateful to you and others who helped to ensure that they would make the designation. I think we know that these kind of public actions don't just happen of their own. It requires a lot of public pressure and political will. Folks who were part of that struggle for the last 50 years, and maybe even before that, who helped to produce this. I'm also with James, who's with an organization called Prep for All, and I think this is a great opportunity to talk about from the perspective of what's been possible from these last 50 years that produced not just this national monument designation, but marriage equality, greater civil rights for many more of our fellow Americans. But there's a lot of work left unfinished, and I want James to talk about some of that most important work, literally life-saving work that he is at the forefront of right now. So tell us a little bit about Prep for All.
Sure. So we're an organization that's dedicated to collaboration, all volunteer of activists, is dedicated to increasing access to PrEP, or pre-exposure prophylaxis. This is a pill that you can take every single day, and it reduces your risk of HIV acquisition by over 99%. And really, that combined with effective HIV treatment could really end the HIV epidemic today. But we're not seeing an adequate scale-up of it in this country, and one of the central reasons why we're seeing that is just priced too high. It costs $2,000 a month for a month's supply of Truvada, despite the fact the drug used for PrEP, despite the fact that overseas it costs less than $5 a month for FDA-approved generics.
You were also explaining to me that it's at that high price despite the fact that you and I and every American taxpayer invested in the research and the innovation that led to Truvada. Tell me a little bit about that and how we get that investment back. If we paid for it, shouldn't we have some right of ownership of that?
And we do have some rights of ownership. So not only did the U.S. taxpayer fund the research that actually invented one of the molecules in Truvada, the only one that has still patents there, we funded every single phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. So we literally invented the molecule, proved that it worked, and basically used all the data that was used for FDA approval. And the United States government not only has rights associated with that, the fact that they funded it, we actually own patents. The U.S. government today has 3 patents in the United States that protect Truvada as PrEP. And despite this, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will do nothing to push back against Gilead Sciences, the manufacturer's outrageous price gouging. So if today we demanded that the CDC actually do something, we could radically reduce the price of PrEP and really start preventing new HIV infections. And that's a real importance. We're at Stonewall, we're at a couple blocks away from the old St. Vincent's Hospital, where unfortunately a lot of the first HIV patients passed away. And HIV still ravages the queer community. More than 2/3 of new HIV infections in the United States are in queer people, with disproportionate amounts in people of color and in trans populations. And we've seen zero progress since PrEP got out in 2012 in the number of new HIV infections. Still, every day, there's a new HIV infection listed every 15 minutes.
Wow. And we were talking about how this is really problematic when it comes to PrEP and the price gouging that you see in Truvada, but that it extends beyond this. We talk about the high price of insulin for diabetics, though this was invented 97 years ago.
Sure.
Nobody should be making these outrageous profits on keeping diabetics healthy or even alive in this country. But you're also talking about hepatitis, and this one is interesting to me as well because it's yet another example where the U.S. taxpayer essentially invested in the cure that is then sold back to us at the most expensive rates on the planet. And you were telling me a little bit about hepatitis cases in this country. You would think they would have decreased since this cure was released. What have we seen?
We've seen, in fact, nearly the number of new hepatitis C cases triple over that time, despite the fact that we have an easy-to-use cure. Literally a cure that's 1 pill a day for 8 to 12 weeks, and you're cured. No more therapy. You don't have hepatitis C. Because the so high that you introduce at $1,000 a pill, most people who need the cure couldn't get it, despite the fact that the American healthcare system has spent tens of billions of dollars paying these drug companies outrageous prices. And the key thing to remember here is, over and over again, the federal government has abilities to reduce these prices of these drugs, even under existing law. And they refuse time and time again to defend our interests as the American people instead of big pharma's interests.
What I love about what you're doing and what you're saying and what Prep for All is accomplishing is that you're holding those who are in positions of power accountable. You told me that you literally sat at the table with CDC demanding answers, not just in this administration, but in the last administration as well. And here you are taking time out of your day to ensure that if I'm at the head of the next administration, that I'm ready to go on this on day one for PrEP, for hepatitis C, for diabetes, for every condition that the wealthiest and most powerful country on the face of the planet should be able to invest in the cures for, which in fact we've done. It's just that they're sold back to us at rates so expensive we cannot afford them. And I love how you also pair this with what Jared just shared with us. This civil rights struggle is still urgent and necessary, can still save lives. We just need to make sure that we match public action and public policy with the great work that you all have been doing so far, and honor the sacrifice of those who have preceded us here. As we wrap up, Jared, anything that you wanted to add in terms of either this 50th anniversary celebration or some of the work beyond what James just outlined that we need to do going forward, that you're inspired to do, that you're working on right now?
Well, I think their work is never done, and there are a lot of great organizations, not only here in New York, but around the country, the Human Rights Campaign and other large organizations like GLAAD, and that do really incredible things to promote just exactly what we're here to celebrate, the entire month of June. And so if people want to get involved locally or on a national level, then that's the absolute best way to push that advocacy and make sure that we're doing what we can to fight the people that are trying to keep us down.
If you want to learn more, one, come to Stonewall, see it for yourself. You can also follow Prep for All now on Twitter to join this incredibly important fight, a fight that I want to be part of waging and winning. You can also go to our website, BetoO'Rourke.com. We've put together an LGBTQ organizing toolkit. Would love for you to be able to use those resources, or go to any one of these great organizations, Human Rights Campaign, GLAAD, others who are leading in this struggle. And to each of you, thank you for spending some time with us and for the work that you're doing. Everybody who's tuning in, hope that you'll share this, and maybe we'll see you down the road here in New York or along the trail. Gracias.